Hello, Up Radio listeners. Here's Brant coming at you from KACT 105.5 for another great edition of Up Radio, bringing you legends, past, present, and upcoming. And you know what? Got a treat for you today. David Meece, such an incredible artist. This guy's a national treasure to me. Famous for great songs. You know, over 30 top 10 hits, ranging from 1976 to the 2000s. Can't wait for you to be, some of you to be reacquainted, but also for this generation to get acquainted with the timeless ministry and message and music of this award-winning singer, songwriter, musician, composer, and a master storyteller, a great minister. You name it. Welcome to Up Radio, David Meece. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I tell you what, no pressure on that introduction, but may I tell you what, you've never stopped. You're still going 100 miles an hour, and you're doing great concerts, great music, and of course, you know, this generation is getting to enjoy your music and your stories too. Where are you at in the world right now, David?
I'm at home right now, having coffee, talking to you, bud.
You know what? We were talking a little bit before the show, and you said that you're touring a lot. Tell us about your tours.
Well, I'm still doing concerts. I've always done concerts since I'm largely a solo act. I'm able to just fly out on weekends and do concerts anywhere I want to, and then fly back home and be able to spend the week at home writing and practicing the piano and playing. I still play a lot of classical music for myself and get involved in stuff here, but I'm still doing concerts like crazy.
Well, you know what, David, there's so much behind. Your music's fantastic, and of course it has such a heavy classical feel on a lot of those things too. You got timeless hooks, great hooks. You know, you've had over 30 top 10 hits, you know, ranging from 76 to the 2000s. And so listeners on Up Radio right now, go to YouTube, type in David Meece, and pretty much listen to anything. You're going to hear some preaching. You're going to hear maybe the Mother Muffler story, for those who've never heard that before. But you're also going to hear some of his great hits, like We Are the Reason, or 70 Times 7, or Candle in the Rain, or even My Father's Chair, and the list goes on and on. And David, you know, there's such a strong message behind your music too. You know, you're a master storyteller, but everywhere you go, David, you know, in addition to these great songs, what would you say is the main theme to your ministry when you go out to these churches and concert venues and organizations and doing these events?
Well, obviously you want to share the good news of Jesus Christ, but and I make that obviously very clear, but my real mission statement, the way that I go about doing that, is focused on Ephesians 4:29. And basically what that scripture says is, don't let a word out of your mouth that doesn't encourage the listener. In other words, I want to share the good news, and I want to share everything else, but I want to do it in a way that makes people feel encouraged to do better, rather than spewing out a bunch of condemnation or trying to make people feel bad, or, you know, there are a lot of people who do that. But my belief is that if you, even if you're getting after somebody, I did this with my kids, even if you're getting after somebody, you can encourage them in a way so that they know they did something wrong, but they are encouraged to do better rather than making them feel bad. And I do that in every song and everything I do in my concerts, so that when people leave my concerts, they don't feel negative. You know, they feel encouraged. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do better. Or yes, the end is not here. I can continue on. And that's been my overriding theme my whole career.
Wow. So you're an encourager. You inspire change instead of condemn change.
Exactly.
And you know what, that inspires me. You know, David, for the listeners out there too, you know, every one of these shows is brought to you by Griffin of What Yeshua Can Do Concert and Camp Ministry. You know, combating the top 10 teen suicide, teen drug addiction, teen pregnancy statistics in West Texas, which a difference has been made. He's made history in this area, bringing in the top names in the Christian music industry. And of course, you're listening to yet another top name. You're listening to a timeless artist David Meece. And David, you've had such an incredible impact in my life, because not only are you an encourager for people to be their best for Jesus, but you're also an encourager for people who have grown up with perhaps not the best circumstances either.
Well, certainly. I was a suicide survivor. I tried to commit suicide back when I was a teenager, twice actually, and I come at everything that I do from having experienced those emotions and that feeling of worthlessness and giving up and hopelessness. And so my father was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and was a very violent man. And but the worst part about it was he was a leveler, meaning he knew how to say things to people that would just absolutely knock you over. It was so vicious. And wow. I grew up hearing so much negativity and so many negative things from him that by the time I became a teenager, I was useless as far as my own self-worth, the way I saw myself. I just felt like giving up. And so I take those memories and those thoughts, and after I came to know Christ in college, I take all that and use it to try to encourage other people who are struggling with similar emotions.
David, you do that so well, and of course, the way that one of the ways that you dealt with this is you found solace in playing piano.
When I was younger, I started piano when I was 5, and I had a natural gift for it that God had given me. And as a result, I didn't know how to teach piano very well, even though I studied piano and was taught piano privately, and majored in piano in college, classical piano. I started touring by the time I was 10 years old as a classical pianist. That was a lot because God just blessed me with that gift. Right. Now, a lot of people tell me how lucky I was, but the way I looked at it was I thought everybody could do what I did. I just thought they didn't want to. And the reason people would applaud is because that's called low self-esteem, where no matter what you do, you can't give yourself any credit no matter what you do. And, we all get in that thing if we're dealing with coming from abuse or that kind of background. But I played with major symphony orchestras when I was a teenager as soloist. Wow. But somehow it didn't affect me as far as building up my confidence. And I think a lot of that was because for every success I had as a concert pianist at a very early age, my father, because of his words, would just knock it right out of me. And so I literally convinced myself that I was somehow tricking people, that somehow I didn't really know how to play the piano that well. I was just tricking them somehow because of my low self-esteem, which came from my dad. So once again, it is very important that we not only encourage people, but we teach them tools and things that they can do to pull themselves out of that negative mindset and into a positive one.
Well, brother, you're such an amazing pianist. As a pianist alone, folks, if you go to a David Meece concert, you're in for a treat, because just as a pianist alone, it'll blow your mind. Seriously, no flattery. And then as a vocalist, fantastic vocalist, that's not even counting the songwriting. And then, of course, if you think Garrison Keillor's a good storyteller, wait until you hear David Meece tell his stories while he's playing the piano, and again, if you go to YouTube and type in David Meece Mother Muffler, you'll hear that story, which is a story that I heard when I was a young piano player and a young at-risk kid myself as well, and it made such an incredible impact on me. David, for someone who hasn't encountered you yet with the Mother Muffler, what would you say about that illustration?
Well, once again, in my ministry, in my attempt to encourage people, I would take stories from my childhood, true stories, actually. Right. But I always had a gift for making people laugh, and a lot of times people would be laughing, and I didn't know why. Like, it wasn't like a comedy construct. It was really more of, I was just telling my story of my life. But I always told these stories to illustrate something. And I always had a point to it. There was always a reason for telling that story beyond just being funny or just having something entertaining to say. I always had a reason for it. And the Mother Muffler story was to talk about the importance of being consistent in your Christian walk. And that, once again, was just part of the story. It was called Mother Muffler, Mozart, and the Beatles, and it's a true story.
Well, you know, seeing you tell that story is amazing. You know, because when you always could hear your mother coming home because of her bad muffler, but when she would leave, man, you went from Mozart to Sergeant Pepper.
That's right. Well, and how many times have we all kind of done that? We know we shouldn't, but when I was growing up, you weren't supposed to listen to rock and roll, you know, and so I was supposed to play just classical music, and so I did until my mom left and went somewhere, and then my brother would come in, and we just start rocking out on the piano and jamming. So, yeah, who can't relate to that, you know?
Well, you know what, though? Again, you're an example of someone who you know, there's a saying, you know, the same wave that can destroy you can carry you out to sea. And some people internalize that with addiction. Others internalize that with making, you know, a diamond is made from pressure. And, you know, listeners, you are diamonds in the hand of God. But it was that pressure that propelled you to excel in your music, you know, and then, of course, you went on to write songs like We're the Reason, you know, recorded over 200 times in different languages and all over the world. You know, I vaguely remember from your concert, you know, you were writing songs, and I think you said that you couldn't find anyone else to record them, so you recorded them yourself, but they came out better than anybody else could do them as well. But tell us about We're the Reason. How did that come together for you?
Well, I was actually working on my fourth album, which was called Are You Ready, in the summer of 1980. And we had recorded the whole album. In fact, we had finished all the songs and recorded all the instrumentation on everything and done the vocals, everything, except on one song, this one last song. And I didn't have any lyrics. I didn't have any words for the song. I had written the music first. I'm one of those few musicians that doesn't write the lyrics first. Most songwriters write the lyrics first, and then they put it to music. I write the music first, and I really focus on the music, making sure the music itself is great. And then I pray that God will give me whatever it is He wants to say through the song. So I was in the studio with my producer, Brant Bannister, and Brown asked me if I'd finished that last song, and I said no. I said, I'm still trying to come up with a lyric. I had written probably 4 or 5 different lyrics to that song. There are all kinds of different approaches to it. And I wasn't happy with any of them. And my producer said, well, David, you need to finish it because we need to do the vocal, like now, like tomorrow. Because the record company had called him up and said they're going to release the record next month. I mean, it was like, it was that kind of thing. And I went, well, how are they going to release it if we hadn't finished it? Well, Dave, go write some lyrics and we'll just have to do it tomorrow. So I went back to my hotel and I began to pray about it. And I asked God what He wanted to say about it, got my Bible out, read it. And I had a little Rhodes, Fender in my room. Remember the old Fender Rhodes?
Yeah,
and I was sitting there, and I had one in the room, in the hotel room, with a little tiny speaker. And I started playing the melody, and I mean, God just plopped it right out of the sky. See, this is how you know that it was God that did it, and not me. I had been trying repeatedly to come up with some great intellectual, profound statement, and I couldn't do it. But all of a sudden, in a matter of minutes, the phrase, "We are the reason He gave His life," literally just dropped into my consciousness. And I knew that was from God. I wrote it down, and I got chills, and I just started writing. And within minutes, I had written the entire chorus and the entire song. And the next day, I went into the studio with my producer, and I said, I got this lyric here. Let me sing it for you. And I sat down at the piano in the studio, and I played it for my producer. And Brant Bannister, who is the most successful producer of Christian music in the history of Christian music, as far as I'm concerned, and he just got this he when he gets this smile, he gets this smile on him, and it's almost like a geek smile. When he gets that smile, you know, he's screaming happy, and he got that big, huge smile on his face, that grin. And I said, "What you think?" And he went, "It bears witness." That's a quote. And he said, "Let's do it." And literally, the very next day after having written the night before the lyrics, we went in and recorded that vocal.
Wow.
And that's why, though, if you ever saw the album, Are You Ready? We Are the Reason is the last song on the album. And the reason it was because it was the last one we finished, and we were in such a rush, we had no way to, we had already sequenced, like what song comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth on the album. We had already sequenced everything else, and we knew that musically it fit as the last song. If I had been able to wait a little while, I probably would have put it like at the beginning of the album or the second or third song because, you know, it was, you know. But I put it on the album, and the song within 2 years was nominated for Song of the Year, and it was a worldwide classic.
Man, well, and a classic it was. You know, so many people have so many memories about that song, and about you. You know, David, you've written the soundtrack of people's lives all over the world, including mine. You know, and I can remember being a young piano player. My father had passed, and being raised by a single mom and seeing the Christmas lights dance off the old red piano that she bought me, and I would be playing, and your album would play over and over and over again, and We Are the Reason, you know, that last one. I'm surprised I didn't scratch that record. We actually had one of the records, and just made such a difference, you know, and such an encouragement, and really pointed people to Jesus. You know, there's been people that some people say if a ministry doesn't point to Jesus, then something's wrong. Your ministry, your songs, your story, man, it all comes back to Jesus. You know, out of tragedy comes triumph, and you're a living testimony to that. And so, you know, 1980. I mean, Rick Springfield was hitting really big, and all his new sounds. But you were right there. You know, not only with great hooks that could stand on their own, but the words could stand on its own as well. And Are You Ready was an innovative album. What you did with synthesizers and all that, and through that innovation, though, you would continue to have all these fantastic songs, but there came a time in your life when things got real heavy, where you had an epiphany regarding your father. You know, I believe it was in a hotel room. But
that's right.
Would you be interested in telling us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, basically what had happened was I spent a great deal of my life hating my father because of what he had done to me, but mostly because of what he did to my mother and my brother and my sister. And he died in 1986. I was in the middle of my 70x7 tour, which is ironic. And
wow.
It was at that point when I was at his funeral that I realized how much hatred I had toward him. I just never really faced it. I just kind of shoved it back in the back of my mind. But the fact of the matter is, anger or hatred, something like that, is like a cancer, and it'll eat you alive, and it will affect everything you do and everything you think, how you come across to others, how you treat others. And I just didn't realize it because I had just been in denial. And when my father died, it just came to the fore, and I realized I needed to forgive my dad. He's dead now. You know, he can't do anything else to me, so why am I hating somebody who's not even there? What good is that? And so, anyway, I went into counseling and therapy, and I was going into, my pastor met with me every week. I was memorizing scripture. I was doing everything I could to try to get a handle on this forgiveness thing, because I'm telling you, I was so angry at my father. I just didn't know how I could ever get over what he had done to us. And in 1988, I remember I was finishing a concert in front of, it was a great concert. I had my band, I had my backup singers, I had the pyrotechnics, and I had about 5,000 people in the audience. And I went back to my hotel room, and anyway, in an epiphany, I saw my father as a little boy, and this was a God thing. God put this in my mind.
Wow.
I saw my dad as a little boy, and all of a sudden, you see, a lot of times when we hate somebody, it's because we see them in one respect. What God will do over time, if you will seek Him with all your heart, is He will show you a way to look at somebody or to see an event in a way that all of a sudden changes all of that. So much of it is how we see things. And I saw my dad as a little boy himself who had been abused.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like I just felt this wave come over me. And it's at that moment that God literally reached inside of me and pulled every bit of that hatred and anger out of me. And I knew on that night, alone in my hotel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching TV, flipping channels, God helped me. I was able to forgive my father. And that led to all the rest of my albums were influenced by that. My next album to come out was Learning to Trust.
Yep.
Which was a classic and was voted Album of the Year by the CRR Radio Report. And but every song on that album was based on things that I learned coming to terms with my father. Many times we think, well, the goal is to forgive, so we're better. But what is funny is many times God will delay you being able to be healed of something because He is teaching you truths, eternal truths, that will help you immensely in every aspect of your life for the rest of your life. And so every song on Learning to Trust was an epiphany that God gave me during that time frame. We had songs like The Man with the Nail Scars, Learning to Trust, This Time, which features a Chopin etude that I play in the middle of the song, and other songs like that. It ended up being a huge success, and it was just a God thing.
Well, you know, My Father's Chair is just such an unbelievable song. What's new on the horizon for David Meece?
Well, I'm still writing songs, and I'm still touring, and I'm still seeking revelation from God and studying the Word and keeping an eye out on what's going on in our culture and not trying to stay relevant. I am relevant in that my understanding and how I see things and what's going on. You know, what's hip, what's cool, what's not. I'm totally aware of all of that, from young people to middle-aged people to older people. And the perspective that I'm able to have because of the information age that we're in allows me to still be able to say and craft concerts and sequences of songs and messages in concerts that are as relevant today as they ever were. And it's because I focus, number one, on making sure that everything that I say and do is biblically based, and number two, that I allow the Holy Spirit to do the work instead of me. And that takes a lot of prayer.
It does. It does. You know, up radio listeners, of course, Mr. David, he's a fellow Texan. He grew up in Humble, Texas.
I did. Yeah. I'm the most humble person here. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not from Texas. I'm from Oklahoma, but I love Texas, and I love.
You're from Oklahoma?
I'm from Oklahoma, man, but I'm one of those.
I lived in Lawton for a while.
Are you serious?
I graduated from the conservatory. No, true. I graduated from the conservatory up in Baltimore, and I moved to Lawton, Oklahoma, and I was a music director at a church there for about a year. While my career was getting started. So I had a great time in Oklahoma.
Wow. Well, you know, I grew up in Oklahoma City, and that's a whole story too, you know, but did a lot of ministry in Tulsa, and of course came to Texas, and boy, I love Texas, and I love Texans, and it's a country of its own, but there's something special. But all that to say is, fellow Texans out there, you know, you've been really good to me, and we've had a lot of fun doing these incredible concerts with the biggest names in Christian music. Now you're listening to another one here with David Meece. But you know what? You need to get familiar with his latest stuff, and you also need to book him. So, David, what's the best way to book you for an event? Because you are accessible which I'm blown away. I got to talk to your precious booking agent. But what's the best way for people to book you at their event or their church?
Well, the best way to do it is through the internet and to contact my website, David Meece Ministries or davidmeece.com. We also have a number you can call and talk to my wonderful manager and agent, Liddell Peabody. She's a sweetheart. I think you got to talk to her.
Oh, yeah, she's wonderful.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a number of people that help Liddell book me and do concerts and ministry. They do a wonderful, wonderful job. And so anybody that would be interested in having me come and minister in their church even, or whether it's a big concert or small concert,
right.
My goal is to share the gospel. And I'm willing to have song, will travel. So.
And you do it well. And you know, David, I've seen you several times, and you know, I mean, you're not only able to do just an incredible job, you know, with a church crowd, but you're also able to hold the attention of 10,000 people or more, just you and a piano, much less, you know, with a group. And so people go to davidmeece.com and connect with Liddell. You actually got connected with Liddell through a Teen Challenge event, which here in West Texas, we love Teen Challenge. You've done a lot for Teen Challenge, David.
Well, I've tried to help them out because, you know, it helps people with life issues, especially alcohol and drug addiction. And when I was started in the early 80s, I started doing benefit concerts for them to help raise money for them. And I got to know these people out in Arizona. And Liddell is the wife of the Teen Challenge director for the state of Arizona, and got to know them both and their program and the good they were doing. And I just quietly, behind the scenes, without telling anybody, just started making it my focal point to help raise money so that they could do the wonderful work that they do in helping people with these kinds of drug addiction problems and helping the family of people from those kind of backgrounds. Obviously, because of my experience with my father, I grew up, there was no Teen Challenge. There was nothing like that in the town where I grew up. And I look back on it now and I realize Teen Challenge does such a phenomenal job, and their success rate is so much. Oh, it's just amazing. Not only getting people off drugs and alcohol, but keeping them off. And I just wonder if things could have been different had we had an organization like that when I grew up.
Well, I'm so glad that you're doing that. I know that they're glad you're doing that. And through that experience, you got a hold of a good agent and manager, and she has such a heart for ministry, and of course, you know, that reflects in what she does, and she gets you. I get you. So listeners, you need to get David.
And there you go.
You know, and Greg Griffin, just an amazing man, a businessman, GTG Automation, Plumbing, Electrical, Heating, and Air. He started an organization called What Yeshua Can Do, Concert and Camp Ministry, and he started making history. You know, brought in the Newsboys and Mercy Me and Switchfoot and Casting Crowns and Matthew West and For King and Country, and the list goes on and on and on. But you know what? I would be so excited to see David Meece come to West Texas.
So
I'd love to.
Oh, well, we would love it. We would love it. And a lot of you listeners, you know what? If you notice, there's a Christian concert just about every month now since Mr. Greg Griffin started doing what he's doing. And I tell you what, whether it's us or whether it's one of you, you need to get a hold of David Meece. Have him come to West Texas. And for those who are listening to us on the internet, have him come to your city too. Get behind a great ministry, a timeless ministry. The music on its own will blow you away. The stories of its own will inspire you. But the person of David Meece will bless you. You know, David, I knew a young lady that went to one of your concerts when she was like 14 years old, and you had the flu, but you refused to cancel your concert that night, and you just made her live. You made her year, and you know, brother, I tell you, you're still the same man, you know, and that's wonderful. And I'm just very thrilled and honored that you would do this interview on Up Radio. We want to know what you're doing, and we want to keep up with what you're doing. And the question that I always ask our guests is, what's the number one way that we can get behind the ministry of David Meece?
I always tell people, I said, you know, there is nothing more powerful than a serious prayer warrior. And especially for those of us who are in the ministry, we're out there in the front lines, and we get a lot of opposition, and a lot of people trying to shut us down.
Well, David, thank you very much for being on Up Radio, and we sure appreciate you and your ministry.
Oh, man, absolutely.
And we'll talk to you next time, listeners, on Up Radio.